Hi, my name is James Chan. I am Principal of Asia Marketing and Management, a consultancy specialized in helping companies sell their products and services to China. We have a very wonderful show today. I'm glad, first of all, that we have our old friend, Jim DeLorenzo, as our co-host. So first of all, before I introduce our guest for this episode later, let me just say hello to my old friend, Jim.
Good to see you, James.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Jim.
So how have things been in the world of advocating Philadelphia to the Asian market?
Oh, God. What a long story. But to make it really short, well, I've been in this area since 1983. I started out in New York working for big Fortune 500 company. Like many consultants, you know, we kind of learn what to do and
Sure.
and kind of had enough successes to believe that we can do it on our own. And then I just for personal reasons decided to come to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia actually is much better than I thought and has been much better. I prefer to be in Philly. In fact, believe it or not, I work for more than 100 companies, not necessarily all in Philadelphia, but the major ones. I have a client that I've been working on for 35 years, non-stop. Do you believe it?
That's
and
wonderful.
It's a Philadelphia company, and it's a manufacturing company, and
My
it's a
goodness.
company that is 100 years old.
Wow. That's a story in and of itself. The fact that the company has been a manufacturer in this area for that long, still exists, as you've been doing business with them for so long.
And not only that, the company is a precision engineer company. It's doing some stuff that, while not necessarily completely high tech, but it's high touch. It's high crafted, and it's in the power generation industry. It even supplies to the U.S. Navy.
Wow.
But it's not necessarily all military related. They go into the rotating equipment industry. So really, I just want people to know that Philadelphia really has companies that are quite top-notched. I don't know why so many people feel that Philadelphia is kind of like nothing much. I don't know why. You've been in Philly long enough. So
there seems to be that perception that Philadelphia doesn't have a lot to offer, but at the same time, companies like your client have been doing business for so long and successful at what they're doing and have an appeal internationally as well.
yeah, I'm sure that in your experience, you set up your business in 1999.
Correct.
After, of course, you work.
I have worked for other people for a number of years.
You learn your trade.
Yes.
You knew what you were doing.
I like to think I did.
You must have, because otherwise you would not have had the courage to take the leap.
Well, that's one of the great things about the people who taught me and who mentored me along the way was, in their own particular ways, if they were not themselves entrepreneurs, they had an entrepreneurial spirit. And it was only later in my working for other people that I realized that I had that entrepreneurial spirit too. And that's something that I think is uniquely American, but also uniquely, especially in this day and age, something that I see a lot of in the Philadelphia market. I see a lot of in the Philadelphia region. And I just love those stories and I love those people to work with them.
I'm so happy you mentioned that, because I never thought of myself as being an entrepreneur. Really, I never. I mean, I got my Ph.D. I grew up in China. I was born in China. I grew up in Hong Kong. I came to America in '71. I wanted to get a Ph.D. I thought I could be a scholar. But by the time I got my Ph.D., guess what? I realized I really wasn't cut out to be a scholar. I couldn't stand sitting day after day, reading book after book, because I like to be with people.
Yes.
And so my point is that I never thought that I would be running a business. I really think that it's very important for people to know that when the time comes, if there is a little voice in your heart that tells you to do something, just do it. It doesn't matter whether you are by nature or by design entrepreneurial. You just have to do.
And do you think you had that spirit even when you were growing up in Hong Kong? Do you think that was something that you wanted to, that when you came to America, you wanted to embrace that? Or was that something that...
No, I grew up in... Okay, no, no, and no. But
Okay.
there was one thing I did in Hong Kong that prepared me to be a successful entrepreneur.
Right.
How to sell. You
Okay.
see, I was born into a family where my parents were in business, not a big business. They were in very small businesses, and my mother ran a store, what we now call a dry goods store.
Okay.
I would sell everything from women's underwear to Pepsodent toothpaste to Johnson & Johnson baby powder, fake jewelry, toilet paper. And then people would walk in from the oh, kiwi shoe polish, not to mention. And then I grew up. I mean, I didn't have a family life because I grew up in a store.
Right, you were working all the time.
So when I returned home from primary school, junior high, senior high, I would walk into the store and I would be the salesman. And it was those years of selling that I think allowed me to be not afraid of people.
Right.
And I'm sure that in your PR experience, you probably have the same kind of training.
Yes.
In other words, if you are afraid of people, if you are afraid to pick up the phone to be with people and to wine and dine, and there's no way you can do PR. Come on.
You cannot be an introvert and be in public relations.
No,
Not at all.
I love people.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, that's why. Tell me one kind of PR experience that to you is it's just kind of like the story, your favorite story.
It was very early in my career. I was working at Villanova University in the athletic department, and I was responsible for the publicity for the women's basketball team. And in the mid-1980s, women's basketball was not as big a deal as it is now.
Okay.
And I was representing the women's team, and I was able to get a full-page photo of one particular student-athlete in a national publication that advanced the story of what's going to happen in the preseason. And it was this national magazine, and it had a full-page photo of the young woman. Her name was Helen Koskinen. And I made sure I got a copy of it when it came out and gave it to her. And the next day, she came in with her mother and her father, a bunch of balloons, homemade cookies. She said, I never expected anything like this, and I want to thank you so much for doing this. And that just moved me so much, that reaction. I still remember that to this day, how grateful she and her family were for that one full-page photo in a national magazine.
Very good. This dovetails very well with a question from the viewer, from Richard Gallo. And the question is, why is storytelling so important in so many PR situations, Jim?
Well, you want to have your story straight. And if you want to tell a story and you want to influence people to buy your product or buy your services or to use your services, you want to be able to have a story that resonates with people, that affects people. And a lot of times in the marketing and public relations world, we talk about getting mind share. But what I'm really trying to do, and I've been focused on this for the last year or so, is find stories that touch your heart, touch your emotions, inspire you to, I want to look at this, or I want to buy this, or I want to get involved with this. So I'm all about telling stories in PR situations that impact people and affect people, a positive effect, a positive impact. I do not try to indulge in negative stories or negative situations. I tend to shy away from crisis communications. I want to tell the positive stories, the good stories that can help people.
You know, before I came here, knowing the fact that I'm going to meet you, I thought of an author, one of my favorite authors. His name is Daniel J. Boorstin. He used to be head of the library. He used to be the librarian of the United States Congress. And he wrote a book called The Image, published in 1961, which is about pseudo events. Now, what I really wanted to tell you is that I learned of one of his many quotes. He said, talking about great Americans and great American institutions, and he said, some are great, some have created great success, and some hire public relations officers. So I said, oh, well, Jim might want to put this on his website.
Absolutely, and it's very true. And there are so many great stories out there, and some of them you don't hear about because it's somebody doesn't know how to tell their story, or someone doesn't know how good their story is.
Right.
So someone like me will come along and work with them to find that nugget of gold.
Good.
And help them refine it so that we can present it to the world.
So I hope you will make use of that quote.
I
It's really
definitely
great.
will. Daniel Borston, I love it.
So for people, we certainly want more questions from you, the viewers. So this is how you submit questions to Money Matters.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our hosts and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Welcome to Money Matters again. Now it is time to introduce our guest. Today, we have a wonderful guest. I'm not just saying it because I say it's wonderful. You know why I say it's wonderful? Because if you have watched many episodes of Money Matters TV, you know that many of us, the hosts, the co-hosts, and the guests are in the service industries. But now, today, we have something completely different. We have a manufacturer. We have somebody who actually makes things. These are the people I love because I think that we have to have somebody who actually makes stuff and not just services. Nothing wrong with service providers like me. So now, it is my extreme pleasure to introduce our guest today, Joe Sinclair.
Thanks
Hi,
for
Joe.
having me. Pleasure to meet you, James.
Yes, pleasure to meet you.
Jim.
Now, Joe, tell us about your company. Your company is about smart 3D printing.
Yes.
And you are somewhere in, is it Western or Central Pennsylvania? I'll let you talk.
Sure. So we're actually located in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But basically what Solid Innovations does is we make smart software solutions for 3D printing equipment, and then we utilize that equipment to fabricate components for people.
Yeah.
So a big part of that is right now 3D printers have a pretty high learning curve, and so we've developed software that actually allows us to plug and play almost any operator and allow them to run the equipment rather than having to highly train somebody who you may not be able to find easily.
Right. Now, I have a ton of questions, but I don't want to bogart your time,
Please.
Jim, so please just barge in whenever you want to ask them.
How rapid has the growth and use of 3D printing become, especially in the time that you started the company in 2015?
Yeah, so we started the company in 2015, but believe it or not, 3D printing, the technical term, is actually additive manufacturing. And additive manufacturing has actually been around for 40 years, going on 50 years.
Wow.
So the first patents were 1980-ish. And so 3D printing really didn't take off until about mid-2000s, 2010, when some of the patents started to expire, more competition started to arise, and people said, hey, this is a viable technology for manufacturing, not just little trinkets or prototypes, but end-use parts.
Yeah, earlier, Joe, I forgot to mention the name of your company, Solid Innovations.
Yes.
Why Solid Innovations? And also, tell people what really is 3D printing.
Sure.
It's very basic, but you still have to explain.
Yeah.
It has to come from you.
Sure. So I'll start with 3D printing. So basically 3D printing is, imagine a robot that lays bricks piece by piece and they're building up a structure in 3 dimensions. That's basically how a 3D printer works. It's basically laying material down layer by layer, slowly building a 3D structure. So here's a good analogy. Imagine taking a piece of paper and cutting a shape out of it. Okay, you lay that piece of paper down.
But then it's only two-dimensional.
Yes, right. But then take a second piece of paper and cut another 2D shape, and now glue those together, one on top of the other until you have a 3D structure.
Oh, until you have the third dimension.
Yes,
Oh,
precisely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you 3D print Adam and Eve?
Maybe one day.
Maybe one
Maybe
day.
one day.
One
Yeah,
day.
yeah. We're not quite there yet. It still has a way to go.
But still, why Solid Innovations?
So-
How did the name come about?
Sure. So the name really came from the idea that we weren't interested in just one product or one software product or one hardware product. We were interested in actually changing the industry of additive manufacturing.
Okay.
We want to take 3D printing from what now is more or less a toy, not really being used for mass manufacturing, and make it a viable piece of the modern manufacturing supply chain.
You mean 3D printing has not been used
Or
made
adopted.
use of?
Yes.
Adopted.
Precisely.
As a tool for manufacturing.
Yes, yeah. So it's nowhere close to things like injection molding or machining or CNC.
Why the lack of respect, may I
So
ask?
there's like towards 3D printing,
Yeah.
or so really, and this was something. This is the whole root of Solid Innovations. Is people think 3D printing is this awesome new technology, and it is. But in reality, it doesn't stand up to the standards that we have in current manufacturing methods. Right now, if I 3D print you a component, I can't tell you exactly where there might be errors.
So you can't find the flaws
Exactly.
easily.
Yeah.
If I give you a hologram of Jim DeLorenzo, can you 3D print him?
Sure. Yes.
You
yes,
can.
You can.
You actually can.
You can.
Can I pick the material?
Yes. Yeah.
You mean plastic or glass?
Metal or yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, even metal.
Isn't that amazing? I cannot
love that.
believe.
Yeah.
I can't believe it can be done.
Yeah, but the only problem though, and again, to your point, is there's flaws in the process. So I talked about cutting out sheets of paper and stacking them piece by piece, right? Now, 3D printers are robots that basically do that job out of various materials. Well, that's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of mechanical operations to actually make just one piece. And all it takes is for one of those operations to go wrong, and then you have a flaw. But if you're not babysitting that 3D printer as an operator, you won't know that there's a flaw. And
Is that exactly the reason for the term smart 3D
Exactly.
printing?
Precisely. So we've made the 3D printers actually self-aware. We've taught them using sensors and artificial intelligence to watch what's being fabricated and compare that against what it's supposed to fabricate on the digital model side. So it actually determines in process, real time, whether or not something has gone wrong.
Name one flaw. What do you mean
Sure.
by a flaw?
So here's a basic flaw. Basically, two layers, if you go to adhere them together, they might crack apart.
Oh,
So you might have something called delamination, where basically, they don't stick well enough together, right? Whether you're working with metals or polymers or, they even have printers that use wood.
amazing.
You can easily have a delamination between layers and have a crack. And so if you don't realize that while the machine's printing the piece, the machine just keeps going.
Wow.
Oh, that's why you said you have to pay attention.
Exactly. That's why you basically have to babysit it. So our whole concept, and this is why I had the negative connotation towards 3D printing, is that when I come from a background where I got degrees in nuclear engineering and mechanical engineering, where it has to work.
Right.
Like in nuclear engineering, there's no, it kind of sort of works, or like it has to work.
Quality control has to be sky high.
Exactly. Quality control is it. That's the only way that you can make people confident in what you're giving them. Well, when I got into 3D printing, I noticed that immediately there was no quality control. So the only way that you could ensure that that part was good is if somebody literally just stood and watched and babysat this machine
So
make
what
a part.
if you discover that a flaw is about to happen? What do? Pour Red Bull?
So a human, the only way a human can actually do anything is,
Right.
one, they have to have thousands of hours of machine time under their belt to even understand what to look for. But at that point, they'll just have to stop the print, and most of the time, you just have to scrap the whole piece. But the operator saved you the rest of the material that it would have kept spewing out, as well as the wasted machine time. However, our smart 3D printer technology, basically, since the printer understands what's going on, it doesn't need a babysitter. And if it sees a problem in process, these issues or flaws occur in minute enough increments where if you can get ahead of it, you can solve it. So our system actually autocorrects in process and will fix errors that it sees as it goes.
And you have applied for patents on this?
Yeah, so we actually, we applied in, I think it was late 2014 or early 2015, we applied for our first patent. It took 3 years, but we actually got granted our first patent.
Sure.
And we've applied for more as well. So, our objective is to make it part of the regular manufacturing supply chain. There should be no ifs, ands, or buts. Like if I want to stand on that piece, tell me that it's not going to break and I'm not going to snap my ankle.
Do you see this as a way to revive the manufacturing sector as well, like becoming more and more efficient and more, will there be more training for people that they can retrain themselves and have new skills?
Yes, absolutely. So, with our technology, one thing is the learning curve of additive manufacturing or 3D printing. Right now, it's sky high. Unless you have tens to hundreds, if not millions of dollars, you're not going to get into it. And even then, it's very difficult to find people who are actually trained in the field. You usually have to train people from the bottom up. So a big part of our software and our processes is actually making the learning curve less. So
in a way, listening to you, are these some of the reasons why manufacturing is still not adapting, using your word?
Yes. 3D printing. The adoption is low because it's hard to learn. The machines are super expensive, and nobody trusts the parts that come off the machines. So there are your three problems. But like you said, does it have the potential to revive manufacturing, maybe in Northeast Pennsylvania or Pennsylvania or the United States? I absolutely think so. And the reason I say that is because this is a technology that brings so many things together. You, one, have to have great software. So software is huge. You have to have really good software that's able to manage the workflow and do the things like auto-correction and process. The second thing is you have to have an excellent electrical grid, like the United States has. You have to have excellent high-speed internet.
You can't have electric stoppages.
Exactly. So, we talk about America losing jobs to places like China, and I completely understand that. I'm a capitalist guy at nature, and money does matter, right? But the United States has what's required for this technology to be successful.
Is the United States ahead in 3D printing technology?
So for a while, believe it or not, the Germans led the way. For probably up until the mid-2000s.
Who invented the whole thing? Which country?
The United States.
Really?
Yeah, a guy named Chuck Hull in, I believe it was 1984, submitted the first patent for 3D printing. And so he started it on kind of more of the prototyping side. The Germans started it on more of like the metal additive manufacturing side, where you're actually producing, the idea was end-use components. But recently, companies like GE have actually begun buying those European companies and bringing it to the United States.
So we still are ahead.
Yes, for the most part, we're
we're
leading the charge, and competitors in my sector trying to make the printers themselves smarter and make the software smarter and easier to use. Most of those are based in the United States as well. So, we have a combination of companies in the United States that are excellent at making hardware. We have the grid, we have high-speed internet, and we also have the things like, the software potential to tie it all together and make it all work. So, I really think it's a big part of the next
Name one
revolution.
important customer.
So, for us,
if you can.
Sure. So right now, the Department of Defense is our biggest customer.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason being is I talked about things like the learning curve being high. Well, we're working with the Department of Defense to actually put our smart 3D printing technology in non-cloud solutions in their.
Although you are not, your company is not specifically exclusively working for military applications.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
They were just one of the early adopters because they saw in the field if you have $100,000 piece of equipment and that piece of equipment has a $5 knob break, guess how long it takes them to get that knob, right? Why not just print it in the field? And so they understood the process, but they also understood that I need to be able to throw any private in front of this 3D printer and have them make that part. I can't have him have all this expensive training, so that's our biggest customer, and that's our initial push right now.
We can talk till the end of time, but we are running out of time.
I did want to ask one question of Joe.
Sure.
What drives you in this business? What has driven you so far?
You have only a short time to answer.
Sure. So really my drive is I grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania, surrounded by the remnants of American manufacturing.
Right.
And Personally, what drives me is I want to see massive facilities filled with 3D printers in the United States cranking out product like no tomorrow, like you see in places like China with injection molding factories.
Sure.
So that's what drives me. I'm not interested in selling licenses of software. I'm interested in setting up manufacturing in the United States.
That's
I hope
fantastic.
you will succeed.
Me too.
I really do. I really do, because I like to see more manufacturing activities. Some people have to make stuff.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, I'm perfectly comfortable with myself and other service providers, but somebody has to make some stuff, please.
Yes.
So now, let's continue.
Yeah.
So what kinds of businesses do you want to get other than the defense and military?
So a big thing is we want to talk to traditional manufacturing facilities or machine shops or service bureaus, because these are the guys that we can now bring this technology to that allows them to actually enhance their business capabilities. Not necessarily making 3D parts for your customer, but 3D printing is excellent for making fixture and tooling for existing manufacturing like machine shops or tool and die shops. So we work with customers right now that are actually machine shops, and we provide them our software and a 3D printer, and they're actually able to make fixturing and tooling on demand to save them time and money, as well as reduce lead time so they can get parts out to customers sooner.
It's amazing, really amazing, which means that you can actually replace all these nuts and bolts traditional form of manufacturing.
Sure. Yeah.
Hopefully, if you do your software right.
And I mean, that's always been a point of contention, but 3D printing isn't contending with traditional manufacturing. 3D printing is just increasing the capabilities.
You know what? I think it's the word printing that kind of gets me a little off. Off meaning it just... Could you find a word other than printing to replace it? This way, it doesn't sound so much like publishing, paper, printing, like it's actually heavy-duty, hardcore manufacturing.
Additive manufacturing. That is the term.
Additive manufacturing.
Additive manufacturing. Exactly.
AM.
So we often refer to
Additive.
traditional manufacturing now as subtractive manufacturing, right? Because you have a block and you cut stuff away and you have a shape. Well, additive manufacturing is you don't start with the block, you start with just material and you slowly build up your parts.
It's just my personal
bias.
I understand. I think printing. Printing?
I prefer it too, but the PR guys have told me that 3D printing is easier.
You need a new PR man.
People are more aware of that than they would be of adaptive manufacturing.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, but I think that we're coming to the end. We don't have to exhaust all the time.
Yeah.
We should have you back and we'll talk more.
Love to.
Yeah. I'd like you to know that our next guest is William Dunkelberg. He is the chief economist of NFIB. NFIB stands for National Federation of Independent Business, Inc. And thank you for watching this episode of Money Matters TV. I hope to see you again.